Howdy. Thank you for the honor. And thinking about tonight, I agreed to do this quite some time ago. And thinking about tonight, I've tried to characterize my address to you, be about you. But in a way, it's also about me. This speech we can call a valedictory. Now, you know the term valedictorian already. That's the number one person in your class. But the word valedictory refers to a farewell address. In fact, it comes from a Latin term, valedicere, which means to bid farewell to someone. So this is my valedictory to you, and it'll be hard. It's really about you. It always has been. Let's think about Texas A&M's history, though. This university began in 1876. It was a beneficiary at the very beginning of an extraordinary thing. In 1862, Abraham Lincoln, as president, signed the Morrill Act. Senator Morrill put together a law that allowed for the federal government to give to the states or grant to the states lands that belonged to the federal government to be sold, and the money from these lands to be used to establish colleges. Now, until that time, almost all of higher education was done privately. The churches of the world were the principal sources of higher education. And universities exist today over 1,000 years after their founding that were put in place by churches. The problem was that most higher education, unless you wanted to go into the clergy, was the purview only of those who had money, that had the wealth to be able to afford to send their children to a college that charged money and where they could live in fairly good condition typically. That's the way it was until the Morrill Act came along. And all of a sudden, this nation became a different kind of nation than the rest of the world in terms of higher education. It was able to plant around this country universities, now called land-grant universities, based on the provisions of the Morrill Act. Now, a little thing called the Civil War got in the way of Texas getting a land-grant college right away. They had to serve a little bit of time before they could do that. But again, in the 1870s, the legislature created, based on the constitutional provisions in place, this college now we call Texas A&M. At that time, the Agricultural and Mechanical College of Texas. And this place was built based on federal lands being sold and the money from those lands going into the actual construction and initial operation of this thing called the A&M College of Texas. The land-grant schools were meant to do something never done before, to provide access to higher education for those who had not had it before. It was so-called working classes that were entitled now to access to higher education. And I proudly come from a working class family, and I'm sure many of you do as well. As Provost Watson mentioned, I'm a first-generation college student. I was the first in my family to go to college. My father, when he was 13 years of age, having attended 6 years in a one-room rural school, was told by his father, it's time to go to work. So his education stopped at grade 6. Now my dad, as I learned growing up with him, was a very intelligent man, but he lacked a formal education beyond 6th grade. He could read, he could write, and do arithmetic, and that was about it. Now he, again, was intelligent. He was able to master many skills in his life and do great things from my perspective, but he never made much money. My mother did finish high school at a time when high school educations were at 11th grade level, and she then had that much education, but no one in her family went to college either. And so here along comes baby Bowen, and from the age I barely remember probably around 3 years of age, I remember my parents talking about the fact that I was going to go to college. Now, they didn't know what that meant. They had no experience with it, but they understood it to be one thing, a good thing. They felt it was a way for me to do better than them, to be able to earn a living at a higher level, to enjoy things they couldn't enjoy. And they drilled into me from early in my life, you're going to college, even though they didn't know what that really meant. So I never doubted. I never questioned that. I never even concerned myself with any alternative. I just knew I was going to go to college. Now, I won't bore you with my pathway to Texas A&M exactly, but I ended up here in 1967 as a fish. It was an interesting transition from a high school, which was quite small. My graduating class had 65 in it, to a place here where we had almost 10,000 students. This place was huge to me, a huge place to me. But I had done well in high school. I finished my class, number 2 in my class, and that entitled me to a tuition scholarship. And I thought, this is a great thing here. My tuition's paid, college is free. Well, as you've learned, tuition is not the only cost. So as I figured it out over the course of a few months after my admission to Texas A&M, I realized this wasn't going to be easy, even though my tuition was covered, and I must tell you, it was $50 a semester. Think about that. Nothing else was. So there were fees. I had to pay for Kyle Field after all. And that's true. There were fees, textbooks, living expenses not covered by my tuition scholarship. And so my dad and my mother and I talked about this, and it wasn't easy. There was no federally guaranteed loan program then. There was no way really to access money unless you borrowed it under other circumstances from a bank to be able to get access to more cash to be able to pay the bills here. So I'd resigned myself already to probably taking a year off between high school and college to work and try to earn money to really pay for the rest of the costs of my education here. And then one day a magic thing happened. I got another letter from Texas A&M, now about 2 months or so after my first letter came saying I was admitted, saying, you know, in your application you noted that you wanted to major in an easy subject called physics. And it so happens that our Department of Physics at Texas A&M has 2 things for you. First of all, a former student passed away a few years ago, and in his will, he left money to provide a scholarship for a physics student. I want you to have that. And secondly, we want to offer you a 20-hour per week part-time job in our department. Well, I went from having only tuition money and nothing else to having a full ride scholarship, and having also a 20-hour a week job that paid about 90 cents an hour. That was a lot of money to me, so I could actually afford gasoline and a date occasionally. So it was really an extraordinary transition from worrying about how I could do this thing called college financially, to having it taken care of for me. Now, I tell you all this because I want you to understand that to me, access to higher education is paramount. No one should be denied access because they can't pay. Now, how to make that happen is complicated, and right now I can tell you that 80% of you have some form of financial aid being made available to you here at Texas A&M. So you're not alone. Most of you have something, a grant, a scholarship, a part-time job provided by the university through work-study programs, or heaven forbid, a loan. You've got something. And that's enabling you and your family to make this all possible. So to me, access is very important because it goes back to me personally. I didn't have any, I thought, for a while. And I did get it, and it made a lot of difference for me. But what else did it teach me? Where did this other scholarship come from? It came from a former student, didn't it? What does that teach us? Someone I never met, who died before I got here, cared enough for me that he provided money for me. Think about that. a man I never met enabled me to go to school here. That taught me about several things, too. It taught me about philanthropy, about giving back, in spite of not having any value back to me. So it was a great lesson to me in several things, again, about philanthropy, giving back, but also about the loyalty and love of Aggies. So that's where I was. Now, I got here. I went to a very small high school. I was not really prepared, should have been for college. And so the first semester was a bit of a struggle. Freshman chemistry especially was a struggle. My first test came along, I made a 25. The class average was 14. That wasn't much fun. Made an A in the class ultimately, but I was scared to death. Very scared to death. I was going to be able to make it through the class, but I did. So I worked hard. I had friends here who helped me. We studied together. We worked hard together. That taught me about the loyalty and the Aggies helping Aggie mentality of this institution. So we had study groups, we worked hard together, and we really helped each other get through difficult assignments, test preparation, and the agony, if you will, and stress of taking a test and maybe getting a not so good grade occasionally. Those were all things I learned my very first semester here at Texas A&M. I brought something with me, though, that was pretty important, and I realized fairly early in my career here that I had something many didn't have. Back to my father. My father was, again, not educated. He was intelligent, but he also had a gift. His gift was relationships. We were in a small town, about 2,000 people at that time, and my dad knew everyone, and they all knew him. He was a pretty beloved person. He was equally at home with a person who was his level, which is very low income, and the few people in town like the lawyer and the doctor and maybe a banker or a business person who had some money. He was conversant with them all. He could meet anyone and within a minute connect to them. He would find something in common with them. And I grew up as an only child, and he was the only role model I had in the family of an adult male, and I assumed right away that all people could do that. Everybody could walk up to anybody, introduce themselves, and within a minute make a connection. That's not common, quite frankly. It's not common. And so, again, I was given a benefit early in my life that I didn't really appreciate for quite a while. That is, I thought everyone could make friends, could build relationships almost instantly with anybody else. And I came here with that background, and that helped me immediately be able to connect to anybody I talked to in my classes, among my fellow students, my professors, and staff people here at Texas A&M. And I realized again fairly quickly this wasn't a common thing. But that's something I've used my entire life now. In fact, I think relationships are the currency of life. Think about that. All of you have relationships. You have family relationships, you have friends of many different kinds, and those are relationships you now built over some period of time perhaps, and they are good things mostly for you. And those things are things that really give you access to a full and varied life that gives you fulfillment, gives you joy, sometimes a little bit of pain, but it does work for you. We all have those, and I have many of them. I have hundreds, literally thousands of relationships I've built that I extremely value for, and these things have made my life rich, interesting, rewarding in all kinds of ways. So think about relationships as something you need to work on. Again, my dad had a gift. I can't say I inherited it, but I saw it and I adopted it, and it works for me very well. You've got to find your way too, because that's your key to life, your key to success, and being able to build a relationship and have it work for you and for the other person in a way that helps you both. That's something that's very precious and very valuable. Now, let's turn more attention to you in particular. I've tried to do a few things to talk about myself, where I came from, and I hope you find some connections there to me and relationships with me, but let's talk about you more specifically. First of all, how'd you get here? Now, some of you were top 10% of your high school class, and so the law of Texas says you're here. if you want to be. Congratulations to you. A few of you did exceptionally well on your SAT or ACT test, and you had a appropriate class standing, and you were admitted automatically. But some of you, like me, before 10% was in place, went through a review process. And that review process is very interesting to me. You were reviewed in two different dimensions as you applied to Texas A&M. You were reviewed based on the objective criteria in your record, that is your test scores, your high school grade point average, your class standing. All those things go into an objective rating of your academic success in high school. But we also rate you in a different way at the same time. We rate you subjectively on things like where you spent your time. Were you in organizations? Did you volunteer your time? Did you play a sport? Do you do music? And so on. We call this subjective because it's not quantifiable, but it gives us something very important. It tells us, will you fit at Texas A&M? So our goal for you as a person being admitted is that you be successful here academically, but also in other ways too, that you truly fit this university and it fits you. And so I find that holistic review process to be very valuable because it gives some weighting to things which aren't just tests and aren't just grades, but really are about you and who you are and what choices you made with your life. And that to me is a good measure of how well you'll do here at Texas A&M, and especially how you will do when you graduate and go out of here as an Aggie and make your way in the world. When you first come here, perhaps your first visit, that's very important. Do you realize that the majority, in fact, over 90% of those who visit Texas A&M for the first time as a potential place to go to school make the choice to come here? That tells you what this campus is all about. When you walk on this campus as a stranger, you don't leave that way. You come here and you find people will help you find the place you need to go. You'll meet a young man or woman here who's a student. They'll take you on a tour, and the love they have for A&M comes spilling out. And by the time you get through the day, you make that decision. I want to be here. Now, time rolls on, you're admitted, and you show up for Fish Camp, or Impact, or both, and so starts a very, very good integration process. The vast majority of our freshmen here go to Fish Camp, or Impact, or both, and those give you a true starting place here at A&M that's unlike any other. Because you know what happens there. You may come in a stranger, but you leave with 100+ friends, don't you? And they aren't friends for the moment, they're friends for the long haul. And you see them when you arrive here for the first day of classes, and you integrate with them, and you work with them, and you hang out with them, and it makes your life rich because the relationships you have there are strong and positive. That's part of becoming an Aggie as well, isn't it? Next, you find other things here to do. You find an organization. Maybe you go to a flow. You work through, over a period of a couple of years perhaps, the processes to become a leader in an organization. And that gives you great value too, which I'll come back to in just a minute. But along the way, besides those Fish Camp and Impact friends you've made, you make other friends here. And those friendships are deep and enduring as well. They're done day in and day out here, aren't they? Again, relationships, 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 so valuable to you. And you can't help but be infected after a while with that thing we call the Aggie spirit. You know it. I know it. You learn right away that Aggies help Aggies. You learn about entrepreneurship, about being able to capture ideas and translate them to action. That's part of being an Aggie as well. You have this sort of can-do spirit that develops alongside of you to help you tackle seemingly impossible tasks and get them done. You never ask, what's in it for me? But you ask how I can help. I mention this to you because this is a very, very important thing about your future. When you leave Texas A&M as a graduate and start your professional career, you'll find that people want this kind of attitude. They want you to show up for work the first day and not say, how big's my office? How big's my paycheck? How long are my breaks? But they want to hear you say, what can I do for you? How can I help this company, this organization, my first day? How can I make a difference? That's not a common attitude today, but it's the way Aggies are. Every time we ask employers of our graduates what they like about us, they talk about the obvious things, that you have a good education, but they also talk about the fact you have an attitude, a spirit that fits their company, their organization, and is highly valuable. Let's walk through very quickly our core values and talk about them just a bit, about how they apply to you, not today, but tomorrow after you graduate and go on to the next step in your life. The core value excellence is pretty clear, isn't it? You want to do your best in everything you're asked to do, and everything you volunteer to do. Now, excellence is not perfection. Remember that. One of the key phrases I use in my life is this: perfection is the enemy of success. If you try to do it perfectly, you'll never get there. So excellence means you do your very best. You don't necessarily do things perfectly. That's my motto. I'm not perfect. I have flaws. I make mistakes all the time. But I do my very best every day. And that's all I can ask of anybody. So think about excellence not as, again, perfection, which really is not a way to be successful. Think about it as being, again, who you are, that you will give whatever you can, your very best, to those people that you volunteer to work for or you work for in terms of your profession, your living. Leadership is something we talk about a lot here at A&M. There are all kinds of ways to get it. You can join the Corps Cadets. Where's he at? Right there. You can join the Corps Cadets. Leadership is built in. But that's not the only way to do it. I've already mentioned organizations, haven't I? We have over 900 of them here. You have the opportunity every day to be a leader in a student-led organization. It is the best laboratory in the world for sharpening your leadership skills. You see, you can read about leadership, take courses in it, listen to talks about it like mine right now, but till you do it, you won't know really whether you can or whether you want to do it. So get engaged in an organization here as soon as you possibly can and become a leader. You've all done that. And that leadership opportunity here is extraordinarily valuable to you. I tell people all the time, and probably many of you have heard this from me in organizations where I've spoken about leadership, that leading is always tough. But most leadership roles in the real world have authority. You may work in a company where there is a manager role you play, and you have people that you manage, and they need to follow your direction, and if they don't, there are consequences. They may not get promotions, they may get fired, they may not get raises. So you have ways to really tell people they're not following your leadership. In the military, it's even cleaner. If you fail to follow the directions of an officer who's over you in some way, there are serious consequences to that. But think about this. Here, every organization you're part of is a volunteer organization. That means the people who are in it can leave. Now, they may be embarrassed for a moment walking out the door, but once they're gone, they're gone. So I think leadership here in an organization of the type you belong to is the hardest leadership there ever can be, because you have no authority. All you have is yourself. All you have is leading by example. All you have is motivational skills. All you have is persuasion. You don't have any power. And if you can lead in that condition, guess what? You can lead anywhere. Anywhere. And people pay you for that. They'll pay you well for that. So I hope all of you have taken advantage of the fact you were at a place where leadership opportunities abound, and you had the chance to be able to become a leader here. And now you can translate that immediately into your future. And it will be so valuable not just to you, but to those you work for and with. Loyalty comes with our territory. We're certainly loyal to each other. We're loyal to our university. We're loyal to our state, our nation. But loyalty is a funny thing. Loyalty needs to be earned and not blind. If you're blindly loyal to something, you can be led in the wrong direction, led astray quickly. So loyalty is a gift you should give someone else once they've earned it. Loyalty is a gift you should give an organization once you understand it and they've earned it. So again, to me, loyalty is earned. It's not something you give away without having it been earned from you. Keep that in mind because it will stand you in good stead as you go forward and get involved with others and with organizations as well. Respect is a core value as well here at Texas A&M. I oftentimes use the word respect in the context of appreciating diversity here at A&M, and certainly it works there very well. The main thing I think about respect is that we owe it to everyone to give them benefits, to give them a chance to explain who they are, what they think, and what they believe, and not simply shut our minds off at the first word they utter. So all we're asking in the word respect is you be open-minded to others who may not think the way you are because they came from other places than you came from. A&M is somewhat homogeneous, but not totally homogeneous. We have a diverse student body. We have a diverse population of staff and faculty here at Texas A&M. And guess what? We're the richer for it. The diversity here gives us a richness, a flavor that's like putting a seasoning in a dish that you eat. It makes it taste better. It gives you contrast. It gives you things that you wouldn't get any other way. So I hope all of you, while you were here, cherish the fact that you could meet people here you wouldn't meet in your hometown. Be friends with people you would never have seen anywhere else. And take advantage of that, both in terms of your enrichment, but also the reverse enrichment you gave to them. Selfless service, once again, a totally Aggie core value, isn't it? Just a little anecdote here. When I was a student here in the 60s, you'll think about this in your own cases as well. Spring break was a really welcome thing for me. We'd been grinding hard through the spring semester, and it was great to have a week off to go down to South Padre and drink a little beer and have a little fun. But you know what? I've seen in my time here at Texas A&M in the last decade or so how many of you don't do that anymore. You choose to go someplace and drill a water well for a place with no clean water. You choose to go build a house for someone who doesn't have a house. You choose to go to New York City and help somebody that a Hurricane Sandy destroyed the home of. That's what I see every year more and more here. You're choosing not to go and just have fun. You're choosing to take the time you're given to go do something good. That I find an incredibly good example of selfless service. I thank you for doing those kinds of things. The good news is you have a whole lifetime in front of you to do the same thing. As you leave here, establish yourself elsewhere, be that kind of person you were here in that community. Be someone who gives back without expecting anything in return. Be someone that helps others who are less fortunate than you. Be someone who leads those efforts. Aggies do that and do it well. Now, if you counted these off, I've listed 5 of them so far, and normally I name them by alphabetical order. I've left one out, haven't I? Which one I'll leave out? Integrity. I save it for last because integrity is something that is very, very special. Integrity is a very valuable core asset you bring to the table. The problem with integrity, though, is it's very fragile. If you ever lose it, if you ever give it up, you may never get it back again. So treat it that way. Treat it as a most precious asset, something that you treasure and hold carefully next to your soul, something that you use every day with those around you by telling the truth, by being honest, by never, ever misleading someone. By doing that, you will be respected. you will be treasured by them because they know that you can be trusted. The moment you do not act with integrity, and maybe the first few times it's not discovered right away, but ultimately it will be discovered, you've lost something you cannot regain. So think about that and treasure integrity above all. Now, let me turn a bit back to myself for a moment here. You know, as was said or alluded to by Provost Watson, I'm going to transition to a new part of my life along with my wife, Karen. It's going to be, I think, a good thing for me and a good thing for the place I'm going. Back in July of this year, I announced to all of you that I'd be leaving the presidency on January 13th of next year. At that time, it was clear to me what the path would be forward. I've been in higher education almost 40 years. Much of that time I've spent as a teacher, a mentor, a researcher, and a person providing service to my institution, my profession, my community. And so I saw that as a pathway forward for me, a comfortable pathway, one where I'd be able to enjoy with a somewhat less intense life I've had the last several years, and one that would allow me to do things I haven't been able to do for quite a while that I really enjoy a lot. But I thought about that over the last several months and began my whole process to transition ultimately back to the faculty in a full-time capacity, and even bought a house here in the area to move into soon. Began to make plans for the future in that way. Then just a few weeks ago, something else came along. An opportunity I had not expected, an opportunity to serve elsewhere in a similar capacity to my role here at Texas A&M. And I had to immediately begin to weigh what I had chosen as a pathway back in July versus what I had in front of me in October. The difference was very simple. It was a matter of whether I wanted to interact with, to serve, if you will, students in my classes, in my research laboratory, whether I wanted to continue interacting at a larger scale with literally thousands of you as I have for many years here at Texas A&M. And so my wife and I discussed this quite a bit. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but ultimately just a short time ago I made the decision to take the offer of a university outside of Texas to become their leader. I feel good about that because I have a chance to continue what I've done here for you. I have a chance to serve a student body, not quite as big as yours, but almost as big as yours, in the same way I've served you over the last years here at Texas A&M. There's life in the body yet. There's some joy in the body yet to be gained from interacting with you on a large scale, and so I've chosen to do that. But last week in Missouri, when I was announced as the next chancellor of the University of Missouri at Columbia, I was asked by somebody, well, how long will you do this job? I said, well, I will do it as long as I feel I'm capable of doing it well, as long as I'm allowed to do it by my board there because I'm an at-will employee, as I am here at Texas A&M. But I said, one thing's for sure. I'm going back to Aggieland to die. And I meant that. Not right away, of course. But this will always be home to us. My wife and I will spend time in Missouri enjoying that venue, serving students there, doing what we can there as we did here at Texas A&M. But at some point in the future, not that far away, I'm sure, we'll be done with that. That'll be all I can give, and I'll come back here to Aggieland, not to die right away, but of course to live for a time and be buried inside a Kyle Field. What more could I ask for? Let me leave you with one simple thing. And I say this every year at Convocation, whether I'm the speaker or not, so this is what you always get from me. Think about what you're inheriting tomorrow. You're going to cross the stage tomorrow. I will hand you a tube, and I hope there's a diploma inside of that tube for you. We're checking right now. But what is that? It's a piece of paper. That piece of paper says that you've done certain things here at Texas A&M. It says the faculty have evaluated you and found you to be okay, that you know certain things, you can do certain kinds of things. That's what the diploma says, at least in one way. But it says something else. On top of the diploma, there's a title. It says Texas A&M University. That's our brand. So what you're getting from this university tomorrow is not just a piece of paper which certifies you've completed certain courses of study here at Texas A&M. It says you're bearing the brand of Texas A&M. Now, what's the value of a brand? What's the value of Coca-Cola, Nike? What's the value of those? How is it established? The brand is out there, in your case, because of those who came before you. Almost 400,000 people have graduated from Texas A&M. They have done good things. They have been leaders. They have been successful. They have solved problems. They have helped others. They have built the brand. You inherited. So, in the act of crossing the stage tomorrow, you inherit a very, very valuable thing. A brand built up by 400,000 people who came before you. Now, what's your response to that? Your job then is to make the brand even better. So the charge for you is to go out tomorrow after you get your diploma and day one, build the brand. Thanks, and gig 'em.